Just that's a metaphor. How to explain these things? You had to use kind of symbols or metaphors, right? And that just seems very what it felt like. Because it was like you're taken care of and like you're picked up and brought up to this high perception, and you're just like, I was just awestruck. And looking around, everything was still there. The park was still there, right? The trees were still there, but everything was shimmering and vibrating. You could see the light, and it wasn't the light. This light wasn't on top of things bouncing off like the normal light we're used to, right? It was that. It was the tree. The light was the tree, and it was shimmering, and everything was shimmering like that. And you got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do. Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Well, I have another amazing, delicious, I always like that word, delicious man to introduce you to. His name is Michael LoPatriello. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Michael has an amazing awakening story, about his third eye awakening, which he has written down in a book called The Eye Opening. The Eye Opening. Which we're going to talk about today. And you sent me the book and I read it, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. You've like married all this different spiritual wisdom, all different religions, all different channelings. You've got Paul Selig in there, all sorts of people, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. You've put them all in there and talked, you've brought this spiritual experience from all different traditions, and to really understand your own journey, I suppose, because you've had this amazing experience. And anyway, you want to share it. So I'm going to read your bio. Remember, if you're enjoying the conversations, to subscribe, and like, and, share the shows with your friends and leave me a comment. Okay, here we go. Michael's search for answers to the meaning of life started when he was experiencing panic attacks in junior high. Before he had his third eye awakening, he searched for truth, reading everything he could get his hands on regarding spirituality, and found many common themes shared by the various religions and belief systems in his research. In 2007, Michael had a spiritual experience when his third eye suddenly opened and revealed our connection to the one love light of all things. When Mike's third eye opened, he had a glimpse of enlightenment, which was at first unbelievable because it was so beyond what we've been taught, and so fantastic and infinite. He never believed in the third eye, thinking it was a metaphor for a mental visualization. And he had heard of it from New Age sources, but never took it seriously. I love that. Now, there was no doubt direct experience changes everything. During a game with a friend, he was asked, "What are you going to do if you had one more year to live?" And Mike thought the question made him realize that he had only shared his third eye experience with just a few family members and a couple of friends. So he thought the story of it could help others on a spiritual path and reveal what is possible for human life. So he wrote his book, The Eye Opening, Enlightenment is Possible, to share his personal experience, life-changing experiences, and the spiritual wisdom related to it. He says, you say, "There is so much more to us than we realize. The power within us has just been forgotten. Enlightenment embodies consciousness in its highest state. The realization that everything is one is within our grasp and totally feasible." In his book, Mike shares 9 main messages from Spirit, with quotes ranging from Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tse Tung, Krishna, and as I said, Paul Selig, a couple of other channelers. The advice he found from all different masters and channeled guides rang so true in his own experiences, helped him on his quest of self-realization. They remind us of possibilities of the human experience and help us discover our limiting beliefs. His desire is that his book encourages you to strive for your highest potential and that you will remember your oneness with all of creation. He says, thank you for seeking the truth of what you really are and what reality really is. The search is well worth it. And you can read more about Mike on his website, theeyeopening.com. Okie dokie. Well, let's start from the beginning. What was the panic attacks about? Tell us about your panic attacks.
Yeah, so in junior high, like you said, all of a sudden, and nothing really cued them really from the outside, which was strange. They just all of a sudden started to happen. And my mind would start racing and my heart rate would rise up. My heart would start beating faster and faster. And I couldn't make sense of it logically, right? I didn't know what was going on, and that made it a little more scary at first. And I started to kind of hyperventilate a little bit. And it is scary in a sense of kind of impending doom, which just doesn't sound pleasant, that's pretty scary. But what eventually would become was something extraordinary, which I now call heart openings. So it would lead to an emotional breakdown, and I would basically just start sobbing.
Wow.
Deep breaths, right? Sobbing, like almost like an infant. And everyone around me at the time would I would see that would say, "Oh, like why are you sad? What's wrong? What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
But what really was happening was it felt like all of a sudden like a pressure would build, like the panic attack. My heart would ache, start to hurt, and start to cramp. Like the heart's a muscle, obviously, and it'd feel like it was almost cramping up. And it hurt, painful ache. And then as I start sobbing, that deep breathing, that pain would release, and I'd feel this energy and exit my heart and kind of enter the rest of my body. And very tingly sensation, very warm, very peaceful. So it's almost like it came to a building up higher, more anxiety, and then it'd release, and I'd fall into this state of grace almost. And the sobbing was this overwhelming feeling of love. And that panic voice and that panic mindset would totally go to silence. And I'd feel like almost like a little kid again, just in silent awe. And this presence, it felt like a presence, would come into my chest and into my body. And it felt like, it's okay, everything's okay. I'm here. You're taken care of. That was the energy behind it and the feeling behind it. And the love was just, it's indescribable, right? And that's what those tears were from. And that's really one of the things that started me, because I was in junior high, pretty young, which led me to start seeking for answers. Because like I mentioned in the book, like nothing in school could explain that, right? No one around me was having these experiences. I felt very alone in those experiences. So I started looking elsewhere for answers. So that's kind of what started my journey.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful. I have to say, when I was young, I had that depression too, but I didn't have the heart grace thing. I just felt like crap, and I couldn't understand why I felt like crap.
Right?
So that
Yeah.
started me seeking as well, but I did definitely not have that heart thing. Yeah. But yeah, it goes to show that sometimes a spiritual awakening can be a panic attack, and just, yeah, it's just your
Yeah,
guidance
totally.
system pointing you in a direction where you think you're going down this direction. I'm going to be a soccer ball star or an intellect or this or that or whatever wherever you think you're going, and your guidance system sort of like saying, hang on, you might
Yeah,
want to
like
go. Okay,
take
so
this
what
turn
happened?
instead. Right?
Yeah, take this turn instead, exactly. So what happened after that?
So those episodes happened a few times, not very frequent, but enough times where they couldn't be ignored, and it really made me think, like, what's going on here. And also as young adult and as a kid, and still a little bit today, but in every encounter with another person, I always afterwards I almost feel like I was under a spell almost. This might sound very strange, but it's this. And when I was younger, it was much stronger, and it felt like when I would interact with other people, I'd automatically become a character. And it seemed like I was different characters with different people. And in the book I say this, I say I'm very chameleonic, like a chameleon. And it was disturbing to me because afterwards it was almost like the spell would wear off almost. And I'd be like, what was that? Why did I act that way? It just seemed to happen automatically. And I'd really start to thinking, like, is it their perception of me? Why aren't I just one person? What, like, it doesn't seem like I'm one personality. I just keep changing the masks, which is another thing that led me to start, looking for answers, because the question, who am I? If I'm this way with certain people, different from other people, then who am I really? What's the deeper true self? So that's another thing as a younger person, as a kid, I started to look into, what are we? What is consciousness, right? And I think that's a really big, and one of the main questions in spirituality is, what are we, right? Are we just a body? What are we really? What is this energy that gives us life? So after that, I just keep going to school. I was a little kid, and it happened now and then. And eventually in high school, it kept happening. Not all the time, again, just sometimes. But then in high school, I had a heart opening, and I started to see, I say, a vision. So one time a heart opening, and the same, I was used to it at this point. And every time it started to happen, it still had that anxiety to begin with. So it was always a little scary at first, even though I was looking forward to that feeling, because it was so, heavenly and so beautiful. And it did feel like in between the times it would happen, the pressure would build up. So it was almost like I wanted that release again. It almost felt like the heart was a dam to like a reservoir, and the water was getting too high every time. So then I finally would have to, and it'd start to hurt. And when it released, it would feel like a release and a relief. But anyway, so the time I had a vision, which led me to search into Kundalini and yoga. And this one time, I explain it more in my book, but again, I start to have a cry. I start sobbing. I have another heart opening, I call them. But then I saw a vision in my mind. I was floating in this black void, and all of a sudden I was floating up in the middle of a big spiraling serpent or a snake, very massive snake going around me, going all the way up. And I was floating up slowly. And as I looked up towards the head, I could see the head barely, but there's a very bright light above the head, so it was hard to make out. And then I heard a warning almost when I looked up, said, "Be careful, that is where the head is." And that's when the vision ended. And at the time, it was very mysterious to me. What was that? The only thing I resembled it from at that point was the medical symbol.
Yeah.
You see the snake going up.
Yeah.
And then it started me looking more into these things. And
Serpent
it also, yeah. And so it made me look into what's up with snakes. I never was really into snakes. I didn't like them. They creeped me out a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because the snake has been depicted both as good and bad, in just depending on where you're coming. Like if you're watching Harry Potter, like the serpent energy is like the Slytherin energy. Sorry to quote Harry Potter. But I was talking to a friend the other day who was saying, oh, the serpent energy is the reptilian energy. It's the bad energy. And I'm kind of like, well, hang on. Not necessarily. So how do you interpret it? Sorry, my eyes are weeping this morning. How do you interpret it, the serpent energy?
Well, when I first saw it, I had no idea what was, it was very mysterious to me. So looking into it, what I came across was how ancient civilizations or cultures, I shouldn't say civilizations, ancient cultures, indigenous tribes and spiritual belief systems, a lot of them, most of them, use snakes as a symbol of spiritual energy.
There you go.
And in my book, I have a lot of quotes, as you know, and I loved putting in those quotes and seeing how snakes are in almost every culture.
Yeah.
And so, but then when I really seems like I really hit the nail on the head is when I found Kundalini in yoga, because that symbol, the snake going up to the head, and it related to what I heard, beware, that is where the head is, right? The snake going up. So that's where I feel like that vision was leading me to. It was almost like a signpost, right? To go towards Kundalini. So it seemed like Kundalini was what it was leading me towards. So I related to, and it's still very mysterious to me, obviously, but it's like earth energy or our energy, and it's relating to ascension. It's like rising up into enlightenment or apotheosis, right? Or however you want to say it.
I just got a thought. I wonder if the whole serpent snake energy has been demonized because, when it does rise, it awakens you, and then you've got access to infinite intelligence, and then you can't be controlled by anybody
Right. Yeah,
because you know
totally.
who you are. So maybe
Right.
that's why it's been portrayed as sort of dark energy, like stay away. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've thought of that too. Like, in the Bible, obviously the serpent tempted Eve and all that, and
Yeah, exactly.
the tree of knowledge, and yeah, it's very deeply set into mythology and all these symbols in these old cultures. So it's still, I mean, it's still very mysterious to me, and I don't feel very, I don't know, like when I see snakes, it's not like I don't feel like I'm particularly attracted to that or something. I don't know, but the symbol was, it's almost
Uh,
like I asked the universe, like, because I was starting to be very passionate and looking into enlightenment. And then I was shown very clearly, look this direction, and it led me to Kundalini Yoga. So I couldn't
mhm,
ignore that.
mhm, mhm. Okay, so let's get into what happened to you. I've taken the excerpt out of the book, but it's long. I won't read it because you can tell us. You can tell us what happened, but it's beautifully written. So many quotes, so many tweetable moments in your book, so many beautiful quotes.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice of you. Thank you.
So one spring afternoon, you're in Prague. Was that the first time you experienced the eye opening, or that was in
Yes.
2007? Tell us what
That was,
happened.
okay. Yeah, 2007. I was a freshman in college, and I was doing a study abroad. It was spring semester, and went to Prague. Love Prague, so beautiful. And I was there, and at this point, I was very, I already had that vision. I was very enthused and excited and passionate about spirituality. I was reading a lot of books, Bhagavad Gita, Gnostic Gospels, all different sources. And I was doing kind of my own research while in school, basically. So I was really diving in deep and really looking into it. So it wasn't like this came out of nowhere, right? It's like I was actively seeking. Okay. So yeah, I was in Prague. I was going on a walk. I was on the cell phone, talking to my mom, and I'm very grateful to have my mom in my life because she's very spiritual and she's helped me a lot with these things that have happened to me that seem so far-fetched.
Go,
Luckily
Mom.
yeah, yes, thanks. Shout out to mom. Yes, because without her, I would have been very confused. She helped me with everything because she was open to those things. I had an open mind, so it was beautiful. And so I was talking to her about something. I forget what. I was getting excited, and I felt this energy again in my chest. And I started to breathe deep, and then again I started to sob. So again, another heart opening felt like was coming. Okay, and it's always, like I said, it's always a little intimidating at first because it's like it's a surrender, it's a letting go, it's a completely letting go and letting this energy enter. So I was on the phone with her. I was walking up a cobblestone street. It was springtime. It was beautiful. So as I started to cry, I was near a park at that point. I went and sat in the park, and when I have the heart opens, I'm sobbing and I'm really breathing deep. It's like, like kind of like that, like a really deep sobbing, and which I think we can talk about later if you want to. But I think breathing, that's a big part of it. That's really getting your energy flowing right through the body, breathing that much. And so I started doing that. I felt the energy. I felt my heart open. It was achy, then it opened. I felt the release. And then now I really felt the energy go up into my face and into my head. And when I, all of a sudden, when I blinked my eyes, I felt my whole forehead go boom. And it felt like it was blinking. And this might sound so strange. And it's very hard for me to describe, again, because how do we describe these sorts of experiences that are so beyond, right? So paradigm shifting. But I felt it, and every time, and I relate in the book. I talk about this, but I related to an orgasm, honestly, because that was the intensity of it, and it's almost like kind of a surrender, like an orgasm, right? It comes and it happens, and it's just happening, and you're like, oh, what's happening? And I was blinking, And every time I blinked, my whole body shook. It's like boom, boom, and it felt like an eye, and it was in the center of my head. And I did reach up and touch, and it was still obviously my forehead. It was energetic, but it was very like tingly and ticklish when I touched right there. And the feeling that came and the perception that came is ineffable, right? Indescribable. But this light had entered me, this love light, I call it, because that's what it felt like. It feels like love light. It's the best words I could use. Entered me, it was looking out through me, was also the love light and everything else. So everything was one, right? I experienced this, everything is one. And we can, you can hear that people say everything is one, and you can say it, but to see it and feel it is just, it made me sob even more. I was cried even more from it. It was so overwhelming, and so humbling. It was like I didn't do anything. I just let go, and this energy filled me and came out. And the feeling, like the heart openings too, it's like almost like a cosmic mother picked me up and said, shh, 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 it's okay, I'm here. And I get a little emotional when I talk about it because I start to feel it again slightly. But yeah, and that's what it felt like to me. It's like I'm a little kid.
Oh, I muted myself. You get emotional. I get emotional when you talk about it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So go on. Yeah, the mother picked you up and it was like going, shh, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a metaphor. How to explain these things? You got to use kind of symbols or metaphors, right? And that just seems very what it felt like. So it was like you're taken care of, and like you're picked up and brought up to this higher perception, and you're just like, I was just awestruck. And looking around, everything was still there. The park was still there, right? The trees are still there, but everything was shimmering and vibrating. You could see the light, and it wasn't the light. This light wasn't on top of things bouncing off like the normal light we're used to, right? It was that. It was the tree. The light was the tree, and it was shimmering, and everything was shimmering like that. And this presence in the state of consciousness of it, or the state of being, it was like that. The mind that I was used to, the Mike, the personality, the normal thoughts and the commentary, that was hushed. It was still there, it was aware, and it was enjoying this beautiful change, obviously, but this grander presence was looking out through me, and it felt amazing. It felt more like who I am than the personality that I've been. It felt more real than anything else I've experienced. And it's hard to describe, but it was this bigger, wiser presence, almost like behind me, but all around me and looking through me, looking through that eye. And it's so beyond words. But another thing was, like, I give a metaphor in the book. And it came to me. It was almost like, I think it's intelligence, where it was trying to help me understand what was happening. And for me, it said, your life's been like a video game, or like a dream. You can say a video game or dream, and that's not bad. It's just this bigger, loving presence that you're feeling. That's almost like the person that's been holding the controller playing the video game, and you've been the character in that video game playing it in the dream reality, or in that. And when you're in it, you're very much in it, right? You forget that you have this big kind of helper almost, or this true self, or this parent, or whatever you want to say, mother, father, playing it outside of the screen, like a bird's eye view. And they're always there looking over you. They're always there looking over you, take care of you. So that was one of the sensations that came with it, trying to help me like understand what was happening. And
your experience is so similar to so many of the near-death experiences I put on the show. And what's beautiful about it is that you didn't have to die to have it. You didn't have to be hit by a truck or have a massive heart attack or get cancer and die. There's so many ways people die. Get septicemia. I've spoken to so many people who've had these horrendous deaths and then they've gone and had these near-death experiences. It really came on your asking. Like you said, you were asking. So it kind of, ask and the door will be open to you. So yeah, so you summoned it. It sort of didn't happen just, to you walking down the street one day. It came on your asking. And I think a lot of people ask, they hear people's near-death experiences and they go, oh, I want to experience that, but I don't want to die to have it. Or they hear about people's kundalini and they think that they can't have it. But if you're asking, it'll happen.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
number one thing is the surrender, is the allowing, is the like anything that you ask for, when you're in that place of allowing it, it happens. And yeah, it doesn't have to be horrible or terrible. It can be, you can surrender into it.
Exactly. Surrender, for me, that's a huge, just from my experiences, that's very important. You're surrendering to this bigger, higher power, right? And it's like I didn't do it. It came to me, obviously, and I received it, but I like let it happen.
Yeah, that letting go, that allowing it. Yeah, that letting go. Manifestation Principle 101. What does Esther say? Ask, orchestrate, allow. But you're not the orchestrator. The universe is the orchestrator. You're the allower. And that's the part that
Right.
we get as humans so caught up on. We don't allow. We think about it too hard. We try and visualize things. We want it too much. That's just like
Right.
not allowing it. So
Right. Exactly.
I'm just going to go back to when you talked about, it reminded me of me actually, when you met other people and you kind of felt like a chameleon, you sort of started to be like them. I remember when I was backpacking around Europe when I was 19, everyone I would meet, I would start mimicking their accent. Did you ever do that?
Totally. Yeah. 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 It's like automatic, right? You're just like, I don't know. There's something that we do. It's like to communicate better. We think we need to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's
I've
weird,
done that.
isn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember noticing I was in a youth hostel, working in a youth hostel in Portugal, and there were so many different personalities, and I'd sit down to talk to people, and after a while I'd be talking like them, I'd be using their accent, and I'm like, why am I doing that? But it's this it's this like a chameleon, it's this merging. I remember when I had
Yeah.
a relative in New Zealand. He was an old man, and he had the funniest way of talking. And I took my daughter over there to hang out with him. And when we came back, she kept saying, "Stop talking like Bert, Mum." Like I sort of came back with his same. But yeah. So do you still
Took
do
on
that?
his accent.
Yeah, I just sort of take on the way he spoke. Oh, he was funny. He was such a funny thing. Do you still do that?
Not as much as when I was younger, definitely not. But definitely the especially the accent thing. It's funny, my brother does that too. And if he sees this video, he'll definitely be nodding his head. But yeah, he definitely does that as well. And it's like it's almost like you gotta snap yourself out of it almost. 'Cause it's like it's automatic, right? I don't, it's very weird that it just happens. At least for me,
Mm.
it just happens, and then
I think it's
become
probably
conscious of it, and you're like,
it's like a synergy of energy, like you're merging with the energy of the person, like in order to have that connection, and you're just taking on some of those traits. Very much a oneness principle, because
right, yeah,
it's interesting, in numerology, the number one is like it's all about me, and then the number nine, it's all about everybody. So that number nine is that sort of merging principle where you merge into the sea of humanity, and that's what you experienced in your Kundalini experience, right? Just merging into the sea of the oneness of all.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a humbling. It was humbling and just so much, such a feeling of like gratitude afterwards of like that this is what we really are, and this is such a beautiful, like how could we have forgotten this, how have we gotten so far off of like this is amazing. Our potential is so much more than I ever imagined after that experience.
When you saw everything as shimmering, like made of light, that included like, the tar of the road, the post, like every inanimate objects as well as animate, like everything was made of light,
Yeah, yeah, it was everything. It was almost like to think of everything as like as atoms, and every single atom was glowing.
glowing.
Yeah, every single speck of every all of space. And another really interesting thing that happened, or sensation I got, which is hard, again, it's all hard to describe, but is that the light that I was seeing this love light, it wasn't enough. It's like space didn't, there was no distance anymore. And it's hard for me to describe it, but it's like I would see the tree, and that love light that was shimmering there was also a love light that was shimmering right in front of my forehead. And there was no, and again, this is like beyond logic, so it's kind of hard to even put in language, but it's like distance wasn't even a thing anymore because it was all that one light. So the light that was way over there was also the same right here, and a very interesting feeling and like kind of realization of infinity, and how every speck is infinity. So it's like you can access every point from right here. And that, and seeing that and feeling that in that moment was very mind changing, paradigm shifting, you know, and it's almost like if you try to grasp it, you won't get it, you know. It's such a weird, anyway, I wanted to share that, but the feeling that distance is nothing really. It's all here.
Well, I put a lot of people on the show who have, you know, ET connections and hang out with their ET family, high dimensional families. And, you know, the one thing that strikes me is that they know this stuff. Okay, so then you have this experience. What do you do with it in your physical life? Like, what do you do with it in your life, whether it's a physical human life or an ET life? But the one principle when I speak to everyone is they understand that. They understand everything is one. It's all created by light, and there's no time and space in reality. They understand these principles, and then they create their lives with this understanding. And I think as humans, we've created our lives without this understanding. That's why we have the lives we do. What can we do when, en masse, as a humanity, we have this understanding? What can we create? What sort of lives can we create? What sort of a world can we create? What do you think?
Man, I mean, yeah, I think the sky's the limit, and it gets very exciting to think about that. If everyone was in that state all the time, I think everything would change very drastically, right? Any sort of basically fear, right? There'd be no fear because everything is seen as this love light that is also the love light that's beating your own heart. So there wouldn't be all the, you know, drama and the war and the problems. I think they would all go away very instantaneously if everyone at least glimpsed this, like I glimpsed it. It's not a constant thing for me, you know. It was a glimpse, and I've had it a couple other times, but it was almost like a glimpse, and like this is what you can reach for now. Come find it again, kind of. That was the feeling behind it, you know. It's like they'll show you a glimpse of it. Now prepare yourself to reach for that. That's your goal now. But that question is, I know it's hard for me to answer that because I don't know. It's very mysterious to me still.
So how did it change you? Like, how do you live your life now as opposed to before you had that experience?
Well, and in the book I talk about this. At the time, after it happened, and it faded away, you know, I was sitting in the park and it slowly faded away, and I had this feeling of like, this is going to go away now. Like, you've had a glimpse and this is okay. And now you know, basically.
Well, the thing that
And
struck me about it reading it in the book was that you were doing this for about 15 minutes on the phone, sobbing to your
yeah.
mother. So there's your mother on the other end of the line, like listening to you sobbing, not experiencing what you're experiencing, because all she
Right.
can hear is her son sobbing. And there's mum
Right.
on the other end of the line, like that. I'm just sort of thinking about, you know, how she was perceiving it. What did she say to you when you finished, you know, when it was over?
Well, when I finished, I like told her what just happened, but
Uh-huh.
she kind of was she was kind of talking me through it. Kind of, she's like,
Okay.
it's okay. And then she was quiet and just listening, like, it's okay. Like, are you, like, just checking in, like, you okay? Where are you? And like, kind of parked, okay. When I could talk. And then afterwards we talked about it very
Cool.
briefly. But yeah, she just waited and she's very intuitive and, you know, and I knew she felt that something was happening. A lot of energy was moving. So she's kind of holding the space for me, you know, and just listening, which is awesome. And it was really helpful.
Nice. Go, mum. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
So
Mom.
back to the question, how did it change you?
Well, and this is where like takes not a dark turn, but at first, right afterwards, and I'm still pretty shy, but I kept it to myself, except for my mom and my sister. I have a twin sister. I kept it to myself, and I felt alone in the experience, and I it's like I feared to share it. I didn't have I feel like I was too young to have the courage to proclaim it proclaim it to everyone and just be bold in it and express it, which I wish I had, and to really embody it. I kind of kept it to myself, and I went back to my studies, and I did fail some classes because I lost all interest instantly. But after that, but then I did go back to the States. I went back to school, but then I dropped out of school shortly after that, because after such an experience, looking at any books, listening to any lecture, it became very meaningless to me.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, I think, after experience like that, it's like, this is all that matters. I need to focus on this. And so I became almost desperate, and I kind of, and then looking back on it, it's very weird. It's like, what was I doing? I wanted to like kind of slap myself, like snap out of it, because I was getting a little desperate and kind of frantic, and I don't know why, but I was like, I need to figure this out. Like, this needs to, this is all that matters. So I went back to my mom, my stepdad's house, and I decided, I read in a book somewhere about fasting and staying in a dark room and these things. So I was like, okay, I'll go into this, I'll close myself off. I'm going to not eat and basically just sit. And I want to get some answers and get back into that zone. And I kind of went into this, I call it a nightmare now, because I went into fear, and I don't know why. I don't know what was happening, but these things started to happen. And long story short, I ended up in the hospital because I stopped talking, I stopped sleeping, I stopped eating. I wasn't responding really, and it scared, obviously, my mom and stepdad, and I feel so bad that I put them through that. But I was going through this drama in my head, this like epic drama, and things started to happen to my body. When I'd think of something, it would happen in my body. And it was all fear. I went into this deep thing of fear, and it felt very primal. It felt very almost animalistic and frightening. So it's almost like I opened up these powers, this other perception, and I wasn't ready for it as a kid, and I got into this zone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was hospitalized, and it's weird to try to talk about it. But in my book, I explained it a lot better. And I was diagnosed. Go ahead.
What were you diagnosed with?
Well, they did schizophrenia and bipolar.
Bipolar.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So as you're speaking, I'm having a bit of a talk with my mob. I'm thinking that you've raised your vibration. So when we raise our vibration, we have the ability, we kind of shorten time. So the manifestation of a thought and the reality of it is a lot shorter, which means you've got to totally clean up your crap. So if you're thinking negative stuff, you can manifest that as quickly as you can positive stuff. Although the power of a positive thought is so much stronger than the power of a negative thought, because it's more connected to the source. But it still happens. I see it all the time. I'm like, I haven't been grumbly, and then shit starts happening. I'm like, okay, got to pull up.
Right.
This is what happens
Right.
when you raise your vibe, manifestation becomes much quicker. And I'm thinking that you had asked for this understanding, awareness, let's call it, awareness of who am I, like this searching and this asking. You've been given it, your vibe has raised in order to have it, and now you've got to deal with all your subconscious programming. Right? Which is predominantly fear. Like, we're totally programmed with fear from the minute from conception. Even mothers that get pregnant go through this. Am I going to be a good mother? I hope I'll be a good mother. Like, they're in fear, and there's this forming embryo that's just kind of marinating. And yeah, in this third dimension, we marinate in fear. So now you've got to deal with all that crap, and it's coming up, because that's what spiritual awakening is all that subconscious programming that we try and shove down kind of raises to the surface, and you've got to deal with it. It sounds like that's what you were doing in and the doctor's way of dealing with it, let's numb it down, let's push it back down again.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, what you said is exactly right. And I feel like that vision I had with it said beware or be careful, that's where the head is.
Uh-huh.
I feel like afterwards looking back, I feel like that was a warning for what happened and exactly what you said. Like you're asking for these powers to heighten, and as you do, be aware of what you're thinking. You're responsible for the vibration you give off because you'll get it right back.
Absolutely.
And,
Be careful
yeah,
what you
and I
ask
learned
for.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that, and this experience was, I was scared or whatever, but it was a very strong lesson. And it was just
Totally.
that, whatever channel you tune into, right? It's exactly what your reality is going to be and what you're going to get. And I
Yeah.
totally just went to a different channel. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's happening in our world right now, and as I said to you at the beginning of this, I'm sniffly, but I haven't got the swine flu or whatever the virus is that's going. I don't even want to say the name because I've heard it so many times. I prefer to call it the swine flu. It's like you start to snivel because there's mass panic on the planet right now. You said Brazil,
Right.
You're in Brazil. It hasn't really hit Brazil, so thank God for that. They're still out. They're all out partying, are they? Because the world's in lockdown. I have to say, I live in Coogee here in Sydney. I was down at the beach a few days ago, and everyone was still on the beach, and all the restaurants were still full. It was still like party town. But then it's been raining all weekend. I don't know if they're still out there. But yeah, it's just getting. The more I tune into the news of it, I don't even turn on mainstream news, just the social media news. The more everyone's like closing down, like locking down, cancelling all sorts of. Spiritual festivals have been cancelled here. Music festivals, massive big music festival that we have every year in Australia has been cancelled. Huge, it's been cancelled. I can't believe what's happening. So as you tune into the frequency of fear, yeah, you create it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the same's happening in the United States. I'm not there right now, but yeah, just looking at social media and my friends and family, all restaurants are closing down. It's really coming to a lockdown. And my sister's in Seattle. That's like totally getting locked down. Los Angeles, a lot of my family is. So yeah, it's crazy out there.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I just posted on Facebook or Instagram today, the ETs. One ET says to these two ETs on the couch, "What are you doing?" He's saying, "Oh, we're just watching the 2020 series of Earth, wild shit happening." One of Kristen in my little tribe, in my little group, posted it on our chat group. I just laughed this morning. It's like, wow, shit's happening. Earth 2020, Netflix series Earth 2020.
2020, yeah, good drama. We got a lot of drama for them to watch. Yeah, very entertaining. Yeah.
So, knowing what's happening in our world, how would you take this knowledge of the experience? Like, what would you say to people?
I would say that even sometimes it's hard to remember, but that you are loved. You are very much loved from whatever you want to call it. Source, God, consciousness, energy, Brahman, father, mother, whatever word you want to use, the one. And that's really the whole message of the book, is that you are loved and you are love, and you're not alone. Fear is fear. It comes with that feeling of like, it's all up to me. I gotta survive. I gotta figure it out. It's this egoic mind, competitive, fear-based mindset needs to figure it out for me. I need to survive. It's like, relax. You're taken care of. There's abundance. There's infinite possibilities. It's not so solid. It's not brick and mortar like we think. This reality, it's very malleable. It's very dreamlike, and like we've been saying, it's your state of being that creates the circumstances around you. It's not like solid outside of you, even though, of course, it seems like that. That's the power of the dream. So the message is love. It's always, the message is always love. The more you're in love, the more you'll get in the flow. Things will things will happen, and things will lighten up, and you'll help everyone else around you when you're in that state.
So the true self, the infinite self, is this love light principle, love light oneness principle, and nothing can harm it. Nothing can harm it. So if you tap into that aspect of yourself, no virus can touch it. Nothing can touch it. So be more of that rather than the thoughts. The thoughts are what harm us. The fear. It's not the
Right.
virus that's going to kill us, it's the fear of it. It's
Right.
yeah, it's a concept. It's a concept that we're buying into, that the world is buying into, the concept of fear. It's interesting that's happening right now, don't you think? It's a bit like
Yeah.
your hospital experience. It's like
Right. Right.
all the fear is being dredged up.
Right.
And that's kind of like what's
Yeah.
happening on the planet right now, don't you think?
Yeah, I haven't thought of that, but yeah, you're right. It's really bringing to the surface any sort of all the
Fear holding.
paranoia, all the fear, all the survival, like scarcity, like these pictures of grocery stores in the US, just all the shelves are empty. People are just taking as much as they can, like hoarding, stockpiling and yeah, you're right. I think you're right. It's really come to the surface, everyone's fears, and it's like what you said, like what you're saying, that it's not the virus that's gonna do the most damage. It's almost like our reaction to it, like doing it to ourselves, like closing down businesses, people won't be able to work, schools are canceling, so then parents don't have really daycare like for their kids, and then how are they gonna work? All these things that like we're creating.
Every disease, it's all a thought. It's just a thought. It's a manifestation of thought. Cancer. Cancer is a huge thought form. I've seen everyone in my family died of cancer. It's a thought. It's all thoughts. When we don't believe the thoughts and we connect more to the love light principle, the oneness principle, there's nothing that can harm us. Nothing. And I think that that's the message that all the masters give us, right?
Hmm.
Even well, I say even Jesus, but Jesus was hammering that message home. He was trying his best to the consciousness at the time. I think he figured, okay, what am I going to do to make these guys listen? That you cannot be harmed. It doesn't matter what happens to you. That the oneness principle, which is who you truly are, cannot be harmed. Okay, well, I'll orchestrate a trial so they can make me wrong, and then I'll orchestrate, a crucifixion. They can
Right.
tie me up, they can kill me, they can murder me, they can make me wrong, and they still won't piss me off because I understand who I am. That's what he says to me anyway. So
That's
that's
what
what.
I totally agree with that. I believe that's what he did too. I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah, forgive them. They know not what they do. They're buying into fear. They're buying into fear. They're not buying into the light of who they are. So, Mike, how would you like to spread this message? You've written your book. You're talking to me, you're talking to a few other people. We've got a few other shows
Right.
happening.
Right.
What's another way you can spread the message?
Well, for me, I've always felt this deeply. It's like I want to become that fully first. And I know I am it fully, but I wanted to express it and be in that state fully so that I would teach others by being it, setting an example. And it's almost like since I've had this experience, it's almost like I feel like it's my duty to do that. It's my responsibility. And
I don't know about that. I get what you're talking about. I think I felt like that too as a young healer, that I had to be, in order to help anybody, I had to be perfect. And I was so not perfect. So it really stopped me on my path.
well,
And
not perfect, but yeah,
and I remember
yeah.
seeing Wayne Dyer, who I really revered, beautiful Wayne, he's left his body now, talking in Sydney. There was a massive conference here in Sydney. It was huge years ago, like over 20 years ago. And he was on stage because, Wayne was a bit like you. He just quoted from all the different scripture. He was always quoting everybody. He was
Hmm.
just drawing from everywhere. And he was such a magnificent teacher. And yet, right until the moment that he left his body, he was still learning. Like he was still the eternal student. He was never the master, although he was a master. You know what I mean? But he was
Right, yeah.
he was on stage and he was relaying a story. I think he had 8 kids, or he has 8 kids, and he'd lost his keys or something. He was rampaging through the house, yelling at everybody, "Where are my keys? Where are my keys?" And one of his daughters stopped and with her hands on her hips and said, "If only your students could see the guru now." And I remember laughing out loud and feeling so relieved that he
Right,
had shared this, because I thought, you who I revere so much, you're imperfect. You're a human
right,
too.
right.
And it really allowed me to be the teacher and the student, like I didn't have to be perfect to teach this stuff. I can be really flawed and really human. And I think in my humanness, I can relay the message better because we all relate to our humanness.
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
So how long were you in hospital with how long did they have you drugged up with the diagnoses?
I was there, I think, a week and a half. It was such a fuzzy time. I don't remember exactly. I feel like it was like a week and a half. Yeah, and a lot of medication. And when I was on it, it really freaked me out because, like, going in with already kind of a crazy state of mind and not a healthy state of mind, and then getting those tossed onto it, it really scared me. And I know medications, I guess some people need it, but it made me very not a fan of the Western medicine approach because the medicine didn't help. It dumbed things down. I felt almost like a zombie. And so yeah, it was a week and a half. And then when I came out, I weaned off. They say you're not supposed to stop immediately. It's not good, but I weaned off them and just completely stopped them, never taken them again.
Oh, cool. So you didn't want to stay on the drugs too much longer. Oh, that was cool.
No, my God, I immediately wanted to stop them. It felt like I was just in like a fog was
Yeah.
around my head. It was such a, I hated it. I hated the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting because a lot of people stay on. Yeah. The feeling of confronting our fear is much more scary for people than feeling foggy, and so they stay on the drugs
Right.
for a long time. I'd rather
Exactly.
feel nothing, feel numb or feel foggy, than confront my own fear. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You
Totally.
say
Totally.
here, if you're on a spiritual path, this is quite out of the book, do not push forward too quickly as I did. Let the unfolding happen naturally. Always have love as the foundation and the main motivational force for your journey. I was trying to reach up and grab that higher state of being that I experienced in Prague. This was not the way. One doesn't force themselves into alignment, but allows themselves to be aligned. One surrenders. Oh, so many quotes like this in the book. It's such a beautiful book.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
what else have we got? I've taken a lot of excerpts out here. So you talk about the 9 principles. Do you want to go through what the 9 principles are that you discovered, that you became aware of through your experiences and your deep research into all the spiritual truths?
Sure. Yeah. 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 So these are the ones I came across as obviously very biased because they're based on I had experiences, right, and then I'd read things kind of to confirm my convictions, right. So I definitely was looking for things that resonated with me. So these are very much aligned with what happened with my heart openings and my third eye opening. But the first one is the all are the one, right. That means, the one in you is the one in me, is the one in the tree, is the one in the fish, is the one in the dog. It's all the same energy. It's all one. And I mean, all masters, all saints, they all say this. It's like this very main message of a lot of religions. At least deep down, that's the main message. And even in the Quran, it says, everywhere you turn, there is the presence of Allah. Like in every, all things are Buddha things. There's another one in a Buddhist text. And in the Jesus, like, I am the light over all things. I am all. Lift up the stone, there I am. Split the piece of wood, there I am. I believe that's the Gospel of Thomas, which is one of my favorites from Jesus. So that's number one, right? And that's a big one.
When I really understood this principle, because you can chew on it, and as we look out into this third dimensional polarized experience, we see everything as separate. It's like, how can we all be connected? And when Foster Gamble came out to Australia years ago, who made the movie Thrive, there was a guy that I can't remember his name, but there was a guy that came out who was doing talks with him, and he talked about how we're all connected. And he said, if you think about it like this, the space between you and I looks like air. And you said it when you talked about the light, the distance. I was thinking about what he said then, and and you think about how full this space is in between us that's invisible. It's full of
Right.
radio waves, mobile waves, television waves, and we harness it, and we do this like I'm talking to you in Brazil on a computer, right? Because we've
Right.
harnessed this energy that's in this space that looks invisible. Like it's so full, this space that's nothing, that's
Right.
it's so full. And he said, if you think about how that space there is connecting you and I, you see that we're connected because that space is what connects us. And then when you spoke about your experience of seeing the tree, of the light of the tree, but it was over there, but it was here too. It was like you're perceiving the unemptiness of the space, that
Right.
it's all light. So for me, that kind of wrapped my logical head around how we're all connected. What connects us is the space between us. And I thought, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to see it. Totally.
Yeah. So that's number one. Number two?
Number two is, I forget the exact order, but golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
The golden rule, right? That's really found in every spiritual text if you start looking into it.
So
And
what's
golden
the
rule is
Yeah.
treat others as you'd like to be treated.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
all it is, right? And another aspect of that, which I heard recently I really liked, is kind of the flipped side of that, but it's you treat others as you're willing to treat yourself. So another way to look at it that way. So if you see people that are very angry, very attacking, it's easier to have compassion for them because you think, wow, they must treat themselves very poorly because
Oh, absolutely.
they wouldn't treat other people that way if they weren't that hard on themselves.
Absolutely. I remember once my cousin came out from Europe and she was very troubled. And I got her on the spiritual task, started her meditating and yoga and all that sort of thing. And we went for a walk and we were looking down on this beautiful beach here in Sydney called Bronte Beach. It was the morning and no one was on the beach but one soul walker. And he had this big old messy straw hat on that was sort of all, and he had some sarong or towel wrapped around. He was just strolling across this beach. And I looked at this and I thought, oh, this is like, I could be anywhere in the world. I wouldn't be in this big, messy, crazy city. I could be in paradise. This is such a beautiful scene. I was just reveling in this scene and we were both witnessing it. And I looked at her and smiled and she looked at me and smiled. She said, what a loser.
You're like,
Why
what?
do you, what? What's he doing on the beach all alone? He should be at work, look at that hat. And like, it was a completely different. And I remember looking and I said, are you as hard on yourself as you are on him? And she goes, yeah.
There you
like,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, and she had that epiphany that as she was
Right.
judging him, so she judges herself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Like totally throws you off. You're totally enjoying the moment. You're like, what? So they focused on this guy? Yeah.
I was just thinking it was so beautiful, and she was thinking, what a loser. Yeah, so like what we see is me. So it was to 360 degrees of mirrors, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, golden rule. Okay, so that's what you call the golden rule of that. Okay, next one.
Next one. Let me check here. Know thyself.
Uh-huh.
That one's big, right? Because if the one in you is the one in everything, the quickest way to find that one is right within yourself, right? So know thyself, the famous Socrates saying, know thyself. And a big thing in yoga too is, which I like about yoga, it doesn't have you look elsewhere for the divinity, right? It's within you. So you treat your body like a temple, right? You do the asanas, you do the breathing, you get your body pure and clean, and so you're a clean receptacle for that light, that love light, because it's right within us. So number 3, know thyself, right? And that theme is also found in so many stories, and it's the force is within you, Star Wars or whatever, like
Star Wars,
all that,
Harry Potter, Star Wars.
Exactly. Harry Potter,
yeah.
The Lion King, Simba forgets that he's what he is, but it's remember who you are, that whole thing. So that's a huge theme, know thyself. And then I'm gonna look here because I forget the order, but next one is the heart. the heart comes up again and again in text. Jesus says, the treasure that cannot be destroyed, no moth can eat, is within your heart. You know, in the Upanishads, ancient yogic texts, again and again, they place the location of God, of Brahman, in your heart. They say, look in your heart, look in your heart. That which you seek is in your heart. Like the light that is in all things is in your heart. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the super soul. You know, I am in the hearts of all men.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that kept coming up again and again. And obviously, I am very privy to the heart because of my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
All my experiences that's been the exact source of them, is the
Mm-hmm.
heart. Even my third eye, it was my heart opening, and that energy from the heart went to my head.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the heart's a, big deal for us, like, because that stops beating, we're not alive anymore. So that's, it's like
it's a big deal.
The source of our physical life, but also the source of the source
Of our spiritual life. So have you read any of the Law of One material?
Yeah.
Mm.
The law of one, the law of one, right? Is that what you said?
The Law of One, yeah. I say it with an American accent, the Law of One. It says in the Law of One material that when you go down a positive path or a service to others path versus a service to self path, when you're going down the service to self path, you skip that heart chakra energy. And so you can evolve down a service to self path to sixth density, and then you can't anymore, and then you have to take on the heart energy, which is the connecting principle, which is the oneness principle. Yeah, it's empathic principle. Empathy is, we were talking about, mimicking other people. It's that connecting, empathic, I am you, you are me principle. It comes from the heart. So, right. Okay, next. Which one? Next one.
Exactly. No, and I love that book, and I forgot about that. But yeah, I quote that book a lot in my book, and I like that part that it says there's certain paths that people can take where they can skip the heart, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a more of like they want power for them. They want spiritual power, so they feel more powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, that is fascinating, that book. Yeah. Next one is become like a child, or be childlike, and this one I mostly saw in the Tao Te Ching. It talks about a lot, and Jesus talks a lot about become like a child. Like, no one will enter the kingdom. Let's become like a child. And for me, what I take the kingdom as is, and Paul Selig says this, so I use Paul Selig's definition. The kingdom is the awareness of God in everything. Right? So it is the state. You enter the kingdom when you open up to the awareness and perception of everything is one. Right? So it's not later, it's not when you die, you go up in the clouds, it's not heaven. It's that shift of perception and that waking up to that now. Mm-hmm. So when I hear that quote, Jesus saying, become like a child or else you won't enter, it's entering that state of innocence, of humbleness, of awe, of not trying to figure it out. It's just like kind of, it goes hand in hand with surrender, right? Which is another one of the 9 ideas, which I'll get to. But
state of wonder, that state of wonder.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And just enjoying, and in one, you're here enjoying the mystery of it. You don't need to understand it. You're here to experience the beautiful earth and enjoy it, and marvel in it, and spread that wonder and love. So be childlike. That's one I really like. And relating to my experiences, I always felt like a little kid whenever those experiences were happening. Felt like a little kid again.
Yeah.
So that's the other one. That's number 5. Number 6 is surrender. And that's very similar to which we've talked about. And I think that's what really, in my opinion, I think that's what meditation, it's like a systematic approach to surrender. It's something you can do to help you get in a state of surrender. That's one method, meditation. But
surrender, I'm thinking relinquish your point of view. We get so fixated on our points of view needing to be right, as if we surrender our point of view, then we're damaged in some way. There's nothing like having children to help you with that, especially adult children. Nah, Mum, you're wrong. You don't have any idea. And it's like, okay, I'm wrong. Yeah. If there's a surrender in that, in order to have in order to have this connection, sometimes you just need to surrender. And I think all wars, all fighting happens when two people hang on to their points of view. And then there is
Right.
this resistance. And when one surrenders, the war is over, right? So the war
Right.
within yourself, the war within your family, the war, yeah, just put up the white flag, surrender, relinquish your point of view. Mm.
That's really good. I like to relinquish your point of view. It's like don't be so stubborn to think that you know it all, you know? Like that's, I don't know, for me, like the surrender, it's surrendering to the unknown. It's like it's you confessing and fully embracing the fact that you really don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, surrendering
And
to the
that
mystery. I
you're
know
right,
as I talk
exactly.
to people, I've just been away with a friend. She's got lots of points of view about lots of negative stuff in the world. And as I talk to people, rather than pushing up against it and saying, I don't want to hear this or I don't want to focus on that, I'm like, I've got to surrender that point of view to just hear her. You know what I mean? Like, I've just got to hear
Hmm.
her because this is what she's into. I'm not into it. But,
Right.
there is some mystery in the universe that I might not understand, that there might be something else going on. Look, even when Trump got in, I sort of went, wow, something's going on. I might not know what it is. It's a mystery to me, but
Right.
something's going
Right.
on. It's
Yeah.
like I had to surrender, not because it doesn't matter to me. I'm not in America, but there's something going on that I need to sort of open to look at because, yeah, the universe doesn't make mistakes. The universe
Right,
doesn't make
exactly.
mistakes. Yeah.
It's like going to that open mind, like, not
Open
having a closed
mind.
mind. It's just surrender. Yeah, it's just open
Yeah.
minded things.
Exactly. An open mind is a surrendered mind. Isn't that interesting? Beautiful. Another tweetable quote there. Okay, next one. Where are we?
Next
I have
one,
no none.
surrender. No, it's okay. Yeah.
Number
Next
on that.
one is silence,
Mm-hmm.
or the truth is ineffable or indescribable. And this one, I came again and again reading things, reading ancient texts and religious texts, and really the most beautiful quotes I came across talking about this is Rumi or Hafiz, Middle Eastern, Sufi poets. They say it so well. And this is again the kind of the meditation. This can relate to meditation, right? You're trying to get into a state of silence. And again, also, these are all interconnected, obviously, right? Because it's also surrender. Like you're letting go your need for needing to be able to describe things linguistically in language because it's so beyond language, right? The bigger truth, and it's beyond words. And the famous Tao Te Ching, and I can't say it exactly, but it's like those who say they know the Tao do not know the Tao. Like you cannot
Mm-hmm.
say the Tao. I think it's like the first excerpt in the Tao Te Ching, but it's so perfect. And also in the Upanishads, it's like anyone who talks about it a lot, it's a sign that they don't know it. Those who
Okay.
say they don't know it, that's a sign that they know it. It's also like the paradoxical nature of it.
Yeah.
It's beyond being able to describe.
Yeah. Beautiful. I actually put one of your quotes. I don't know if it's you, but I got it out of your book. I put it on Facebook last night. The fact that we are conduits of the light of the universe, wired for sources sensuous lightening, circuits of creator's electric love power. We are God dancing in the dream of diversity. Is that you or somebody else? But anyway, I put your
Yeah,
name. That's
that was
you.
me. Yeah,
My God, you see, that's a better quote than any of those other quotes.
yeah. Thank you. I saw you put it on Facebook. Thank you. It's very nice of you.
It's such a beautiful quote. So beautiful. Someone's put here, beautiful, Karen. I didn't write it. Don't thank me.
No, thanks for
Uh,
sharing it. Thanks for sharing it. Yeah.
Silence. Okay, and the next one, I don't know what number we're up to.
Next one. So that was 7. Next one is reality is a dream we create. And
Hmm.
this is the same as popularly known as law of attraction, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I like to think of it as a dream that we created because, like a dream, we tend to forget that we're dreaming and that we're in a dream,
Hmm.
right? We forget, and we also forget that we're the dreamer of it. So we forget that we are creating that dream that we're in. So, so yeah, reality is a dream. Like we were saying before, your thoughts directly influence your life and
Yeah.
your body and your health and your experiences, your encounters, and your thoughts, emotions. Those create your reality.
So we're all creating from a core principle. You know, like there is a base principle from which we draw to create our reality. And that can either be our subconscious programming, which is usually based in fear. So we're creating from fear, or we're creating from that, or we like let go of those and connect to the love light, and we create from that space. So which is like the generator we're going to plug into, to
Right.
what source are we going to create from? What energy are we going to draw to create from? Yeah, the fear
Right. It's like,
or the love.
right. And it's like one's very like one's you becoming conscious, right? You're choosing consciously. The other one's kind of like, it's just, you're kind of subconscious, like you said. It's just kind of
Default,
like,
yeah, default
yeah,
setting.
your
Yeah,
default. You're kind of just going through the motions, and it's the programming that you were spoon fed, whatever.
yeah. Because when you were talking about know thyself, I remember years ago I went on a retreat. Friend opened a little community space, and someone said that she was going to go to India to find herself. And I said, well, you don't need to go to India to find yourself.
All right.
You're right here. Once you know who you are, then you have to create yourself. And so this
Right.
personality is a creation, much like everything else is a creation. You know, if we are this love light, there's really no personality attached to this love light. It's light. And then we take this and we create this, we create this human being. Like, who do you want to be? It doesn't really matter who you are, but who do you want to be? So yeah, that's the creative principle. We're creating our lives, but we're also creating ourselves. Yeah.
Right. That's so good. Yeah. We totally, people totally forget that, you know. They get so set, like, oh, this is how I am. Oh, poor me, I'm doing this again. It's like, you are the creator, you're the director, the actor, the writer, you know.
Yeah, the script writer. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So the law of attraction principle. Yeah. All right, the next one.
So that was 8, and the last one is love, or the one that is in everything is love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to me, this is the most important one. This is the one to rule them all. Right. Because really, at the base of the other ones is the feeling of love. Like, this energy, what is this one? I think the most appropriate word is love, or love light. Um, so God is love is the thing, is that main idea, right? And all these texts, basically, that's what they're all saying deep down.
Mm-hmm. That's
Like,
what
you
all of
are
them have in
this,
common. Mm-hmm.
right? It's just love. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
love each other, same as the golden rule. Really, it's just saying love each other, because you are all love and you are all God. So love each other. You are love. Why are we here? To love, to grow more in love, to explore love, to see what it's like to have the illusion of love not being there. Hide and
Mm-hmm.
seek with love, playing games with love.
To lose love so we can find it again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, the
Yeah.
experience of it, finding it again, is such a thrill and such an adventure. Like, is that worth forgetting? Maybe it is.
Yeah, the thing is that most of us look for love in all the wrong places. We look for it in the
Right.
lover. We look for it even in the children. If I have children, then I'll feel loved or I'll have love. If I have the money or the success, then I'll have that love. Yeah, we're looking for it in all the wrong places.
Right.
Yeah.
And they treat it like a commodity almost. It's like something that I need to receive in order to. But the idea that it is what you are, and it is infinite, and so there's no running out of that.
There's no running out of love. It's interesting. I've said this on the show a few times before. Nancy Ryans, who I had on the show, who was an atheist who had a near-death experience, she talked about love when she was in that other realm as being, just like you talked about that love light. When you saw everything as light, it is like the matrix of this world, the matrix of everything. It's all made of that.
Right.
It's like love is not something we are. Love is something that everything is. And I remember thinking, oh, right, I hadn't thought about it like that. Like everything is this matrix. This love is this love light. It is everything. It's just that
Like it.
we forget, right? Even love the virus, like it's love
Right.
too.
Right. I know.
I
Yeah.
love it. Thank
Yeah.
you, coronavirus. Every time I think of corona, I think of beer. I don't know, Mexican beer.
I know. No, I do too. I thought when I first heard it, I was like, "What is that name?" I didn't realize it was relating to the shape of crown or whatever. But yeah, No, but totally, like love is the building block. Yeah. And it's so easy to forget because this is a, I've heard some, I forget who, some channel or someone saying that this is like you're in, like Earth is like a master school.
Uh-huh.
It's a challenging school because it's the illusion of, things can appear very much not like love, right? But
Right.
it is love still. It's like the
Yeah.
lesson, like you need to love through all of that.
Yeah, love created all of it. Everything that we fear, love created it. The evil reptilians, the evil virus, whatever, the cabal, whatever we want to push against and say, the politicians, and say, you are evil, you are bad. It all came from that one source. There
Right.
is, as Esther would say, I think you quoted Esther in the book too, Abraham, the teachings of Abraham. Are they in there as well? I think I read it in there.
I know I have before. I forget it for sure, but yeah, probably.
That was an aha moment for me. There's only one source, and it's a source of pure positive energy. There is no source of evil. There is no source of evil. There is only one source that it's in different percentages. You can sort of allow
Right.
more of it or pinch it off, allow more of it
Right.
or pinch it off. And the more you pinch it off, the more it looks like what we deem as evil. But there is no
Right.
source of evil. There's only one source called love. Yeah. Oh, darling one. Beautiful, lovely, beautiful, gorgeous conversation. Reminders from
Thank you.
home.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything
Awesome
else you'd like
conversation.
to leave with us before we say goodbye? So, how are you living this love light? What are you doing with your life? You're living in Brazil, you're living in the States, you're living in Brazil, you're writing books. What else is happening?
Right now that's about it. Yeah, I do river raft guiding in the summer in the States in Colorado, which I love it. It's so fun. And and ever since I had my hospitalization and whatever, I've which is in looking back it was silly, but I was young and I felt like I failed basically, and I kind of gave up the spiritual path. So it's taken me a while to come back around. So I went back. I just went back to school. I drank a lot of alcohol. I kind of numbed out and kind of was into kind of a depression for a little bit. So I'm kind of finally snapping out of it again. But yeah, I'm in Brazil. My girlfriend lives here. I love it. I do a lot of reading and writing when I'm here, and then I go back to the States, back and forth, and work there. And really, I'm working, or I'm focusing on raising my vibration and raising my perception to that. That's the goal, to be in that state of third.
Well, the one thing I know, having spoken with many spiritual teachers and spiritual seekers for like over 30 years, is that there is a mass awakening, and that awakening don't always look pretty. So I think that when you become the guru sitting on the hill and the untouchable, you're not relatable anymore. So it is
Right.
as I said about Wayne Dyer on stage, talking about how his kids going, oh, if only your students could see the guru now. It's just you got to stay relatable because we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all God in human disguise, and it is our humanness that we relate to while we're seeking the godness of us, the God
Right.
aspect of us. So I think that any teacher is a teacher that's relatable. Even Paul Selig, he's always saying, I'm not the teacher, I'm just the channel. But in his humanness, he's so relatable, when he talks
Yeah, he
about.
totally is. Yeah. I love when he like doubts he's like
Yeah,
it's kind of like a bickering between him and
yeah. And the
it's funny.
guides, the guides say, get Paul out of the way, he's in the way.
Yeah. 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 Like step aside. Yeah.
Step aside, step aside. But we are all that wisdom. There's not one person on the earth that is not that infinite intelligence or that infinite love light principle. Well, all those principles we've just forgotten. So in the jigsaw, in the seeking of, getting through the maze of trying to remember, it's great that people that have remembered have their have had their drama as well. So.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
So you don't have to be perfect to be a teacher. I say this to you, but I say
You're
this to
right.
everyone that's
No,
listening who
you're right.
thinks they have something to share. Everyone's got a story to share, and maybe they feel like they need to be perfect in order to share what they've come to understand through experiences. And those experiences can be I don't know, like your experiences, Kundalini experiences, or ET contact, or near-death experiences, or dreams, or mystical experiences. There's so many, and I think that as we share them amongst this world, it's what's waking this world up. It's
Yeah, I'm so grateful for hearing other people sharing, because it made me feel less alone, and be like, it's not
yeah,
just me, it's not just me.
exactly.
Everyone's feeling these things, and it's totally it's happening. People
It's
are waking
totally
up, and
happening. Yeah.
so please, yeah, anyone listening to this, yeah, share. It's felt so great to share mine. It took me a while to share it, but I'm glad that I'm starting to share it. So
Mm.
thanks for letting me share it here.
Well, but judging by your writing, I think you should do some more writing. Just that quote I put on Facebook is so beautifully written, so poetically beautifully written. I think that maybe you're Rumi reincarnated.
Thank you. That's a big compliment. I love Rumi. Thank you. Yeah.
Who knows? I spoke to Belinda Womack. She said, everyone's here at the moment. We're in this precipice time on Earth. And she said, everyone, all the masters, they've all reincarnated to be here. Everyone is here at the moment. All the
This
angels,
is
all the masters, all the ETs. There's like a party happening on Earth. This
right.
is a best Netflix program. It's
Right.
all
Yeah.
happening on Earth. So
This is like the grand finale or whatever. This
the
is the time to,
this
yeah,
is
the
the
time to
time.
be here. Yeah,
It's a party on Earth. Thank you so much
definitely.
for sharing your beautiful story
Yeah.
with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
What a beautiful conversation with Michael. His girlfriend came home just then when I said goodbye. And I tell you what, it was the first time I saw his face really light up. It was like glowing. She was glowing too, let me tell you. Two beautiful glowing beings. Ah, so beautiful. So he's decided we're chatting about him putting a chapter in the next book that's coming out, which is about people's spiritual awakening experiences. Yeah, his book is so beautiful. The way he's a good writer. He's a good writer. He said that he didn't have anyone edit the book for him because he couldn't afford it. This happens, but I don't know. I didn't see any mistakes. There might be some mistakes. I'm not the best at spelling and grammar, but it's a beautifully written book, and where it marries all the different religions and ideologies and channelers, and yeah, beautiful. So we were just talking about, he said, I thought I should write another book, but I don't know if I've got any more content. And I'm like, well, once you're tapped into the source of infinite content, you've got infinite amount of content. It's not about you. It's about what source wants to write through you, not from you, but through you. So yeah, that's what Kundalini is about. It's about connecting to the infiniteness of the cosmos, the universe, and letting that channel through you in all its myriad of ways and forms. It can come through writing, music, can come through direct channeling. You can channel it into art, you can channel it into business, you can, it's infinite energy. You can channel it into anything you want to channel it into. So yes, how are you creating your life? Are you connected to your subconscious limiting thought forms and channeling that, or are you channeling source energy, which is infinite, pure, positive, creative potential? This is you. This is you, who you are. This is who you really are. This is who we all are. Thanks again for watching. I'm not going to yak too much today. I could say much about the virus, but the virus is just another fear-based thought form in the form of a virus. If everything is just love and light, so is the virus. It's just a manifestation of fear. And as I said with Mike on the show, Michael, that it's a way of dredging up the fear that we've been marinating in for so long. Something like a virus, brings up the panic. And do we let that panic and that fear run our lives and inspire our actions, or do we let the love light that we are run our lives and inspire our actions? What would love do now? What would fear do? What would love do? I know that in the spiritual community here in Sydney, all sorts of community group things have been cancelled because everyone's doing the lockdown. But I actually feel like the opposite should happen. We should stand up bravely and love each other more, more hugging, more connection, rather than isolate ourselves. But that's what the fear is manifesting. This self-isolation. I don't mind a bit of self-isolation. A bit of a cup of tea on the couch with Netflix. I quite like that, actually. I sort of self-isolate for a while and, I don't know, talk to my mob. And then I get out there into life and party and meet lots of people and go to lots of gatherings, and had a bit of self-isolation this weekend. Went away to the country and it poured with rain. There was 3 of us up there. There was my friend and her son. She worked hard with her son doing all sorts of things on the farm, but we were off the grid. No mobile service, no internet service. It was lovely, just out there in the country. We were toning and bringing in the energy of the 5th dimension. I was tuning into the land and saw all the history and the fear, and it was a working farm. It was a dairy farm and it was a sheep shearing farm, so it had all the old structures there. And I was tuning into the energy, and there was a lot of fear there, a lot of struggle, a lot of hardship that had happened on that farm, and just blessing it and thanking the land and thanking the animals and kind of shifting the energy of the area. It's lovely to do that, tuning into the land. She's got a lot to say. She's got a lot of history. And like most places on earth, there's been a lot of struggle, human struggle, especially in outback Australia, where it's very harsh. Not that I was that far out, only 3.5 hours west of Sydney. But yes, self-isolation can be lovely. But don't do it for too long. Stay connected. Stay connected. Go out there and hug your tribe. Don't be scared. Don't buy into the fear. Don't feed the fears. Feed the love. Love you all. Thanks again for watching. Zane's coming up this weekend in the Inner Sanctum. Get your crystals if you want to join us. He's the activator. Look, he's been on since the show. Watch the show I did with Zane. It's a beautiful conversation I had with Zane. But since then, he's been on his own journey and expanding and more living what he's come to know and understand, more living it. So it'll be a fascinating conversation with Zane in the Inner Sanctum, our little tribe. And we'll do some nice exercises. He'll do some activations and all sorts of things. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll just go with the flow. But it's always fun. It's always lovely. So I don't even know who I think Paul Selleck's coming up next week. Yeah, after talking about him on the show, I think I'm having a chat with him sometime soon. Anyway, love you all. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea. Big love. Bye for now.